chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Hey, good day, everyone. It's College Volleyball Weekly, episode 12. That's right. We are 2/3 away, almost complete with the regular season. We've got a special guest today. Welcome from Fort Valley State University. I guess he's the twin brother of Theo Edwards, from what he's claiming. That's Larry Wraither. And of course, well, depending on where your window is at, you got Theo Edwards of Cal State Northridge, Dan Friend of Lewis, Jay Hosick of George Mason, and Brad Rostratter of the Big West and UC San Diego. So excellent week of news. We got to start off with some unfortunate news, and that's the news that came out Monday, Tuesday, that St. Francis Brooklyn announced they're going to be canceling all of their intercollegiate sports programs. So I want to get your guys' take on it. And I'm going to start with the guy who's closest to that would be Jay Hosick of George Mason, who's in the EIVA, and they were in the newly formed NEC conference. So jump in, Jay.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate circumstance, especially for all those athletes that A, are being recruited this year to go in next year as freshmen, and B, for all the young guys that, got to that school and chose it for whatever reasons they did. And, now all of a sudden they're without a home. And that's really unfortunate. So, the school is just, there's not a lot of students there. There's only 2,300 and it's not exactly cheap. And, they're trying to expand, but there's no income revenue stream. So, it's unfortunate for them. I don't think it's a trend. I don't think it's anything that any other schools have to worry about, unless you're a small place and you're trying to, obviously make some things happen. But I think it's a one-off, unfortunately. But yeah, all those kids, I guarantee you all of us on the screen have already gotten emails from a few of those guys, and they're looking for someplace to land, and hopefully someplace they can find pretty soon, because that's a daunting task for this late in the game.
All right. Any of the other guys on the screen want to comment on the St. Francis Brooklyn situation?
I'm not sure. Ultimately, I feel for those athletes across the board, not just volleyball, but they have a lot of sports there that are getting affected by that. But I don't think it's the last you're seeing of the small college closing effect. Like, I think we saw a little bit of right post-COVID with some impact of small schools. I think you're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, the small colleges are going to get impacted, and hopefully not too many with men's volleyball in that sense. But I think it's that piece where tuition-driven schools, and depending on what's going on or how they're, attacking their enrollment, I think those online schools that have that as a platform are in a good space. I think you're seeing less kids go to college in person. There's a larger dynamic with that, I think, just where kids are at and everything. So hopefully we don't see as much of that impact men's volleyball, but we have seen a ton of growth in men's volleyball at the small college, D2, mid-major D1s that are adding in a little bit. And so hopefully we can survive with the continued growth, even though some of those colleges might be impacted in the future.
And I'll piggyback. That's a really good point, Dan, about the less kids going to college. That seems to be a trend, which, listen, with the way college costs are going up, I can completely understand that. And they're doing more trade school stuff, which I think is valuable as well. But, a lot of people are asking, First Point gave money to the school, and will they get the money back? First Point didn't write, a $200,000 check right out of the gate and said, here. It was in small increments that were going to be given every year for however many years that they structured their deal. So unfortunate that money that they did give them is already not being used, but they're not on the hook for a larger amount that everybody had thought. So,
yeah. Well, I think I mentioned to you in our text thread, or to everyone, that is this similar to the Urbana men's volleyball program situation? But it is different areas. I know if anyone's been to Manhattan, there is nowhere to grow there. So it was all a money situation then, from what it sounds like. And, interesting, from the ESPN article I got most of my information from, it said that there's a shrinking pool of high school graduates in the aftermath of the pandemic. So the pandemic's still wreaking havoc, but, I just assume that, the population's grown over the last, X amount of years. You'd think that there'd be was a direct growth with that, but I guess it's not. So interesting that. Yeah. But any other thoughts on the St. Francis Brooklyn situation? Now, so the NEC still has 7 teams in the conference, and they'll still be playing for that auto bid because this is year 1 of the NEC. So next year, I think, or are they expediting that? Do you know, Dan? Or
They're not. They got to get through 2 years on it. So they finish this year, and then they got to get through next year. Once they finish the second year, they'll apply for their bid going into the 3rd year. So that's kind of how that process goes. We're hoping, we still haven't heard from when the championship budget committee is going to meet for that proposal. So when I hear something, I'll let you guys know. So.
There you go. Our inside man, Dan Friend from Lewis. Hey, let's go to our matches of the week. And, there was a lot of activity. We try to avoid the words upsets. We'll just call them surprises. But one of the matches. And
no, Grand Canyon is an upset. That's an upset.
No, the Gage Doble stepped up. We'll talk about that a little bit. We wanted to talk about one of the guys directly affected on the screen, our brother from another mother, Cal State Northridge, is Theo Edwards, who experienced a Hawaii steam train twice. And, tell us, Theo, what you think of your matches and
Sure.
your team and where Hawaii is at.
Yeah, obviously we played Friday, Saturday. I thought Hawaii did some really nice things and found their rhythm right out of the gate. It looked like the team that we've kind of all been talking about. I think 2 out of the 6 sets, we ended up hitting north of 350. One of them was like 410. Didn't really matter. Hawaii was better than us in a lot of different areas. And, a lot of it comes down to the fact that they've got so many weapons. Night 1, we really focused on Chakas and they ended up setting Chaz Galloway the most number of balls, and Chaz did a really nice job with them. And, we made some mistakes down the stretch, but, the biggest thing for Hawaii and one of the things that I think they do incredibly well, especially against a team like us, is they're incredibly consistent. We force them into making a bunch of mistakes, but they only make one, and then they'll go on 3 or 4 plays in a row where they play incredibly perfect volleyball with very few mistakes. And I think the biggest piece is Jacob Tello. That guy is that setter is so impressive in so many ways, and just the ability to execute game plans. But not only that, when something isn't working right, he finds another way. And I got to tip my hat. Hawaii played fantastic against us.
It's #Tella on 2 is the alternate play that they go to, which the announcers were announcing quite a bit. Got to ask you though, Theo, that night, is there something wrong with the altitude in Northridge? Because ball deflation, overinflation issues, half-hour delay.
I have never seen anything quite like this. And so here's what's interesting. So the ball is on Hawaii's side. It's a close game. I think it's like 7-all, 8-all, right? In the second set, not the first set, which I thought was really interesting. And their server goes back to serve, and Charlie notices he can put like 2 thumbs into the ball because it's so flat. And so he immediately tells the down ref, hey, what's going on? Like, this ball is flat. And the down ref starts to panic. Like he starts to panic, and then starts asking the ball shaggers, right, who have like the ball system where they're tossing the ball around, to all bring all the balls over. And what we realized is he never checked any of the ball pressures. And so while we all sit and wait, it took at least 15 minutes for him to inflate all the balls. And there was a moment where Charlie and I meet at the net, and he goes, man, if I had known this was going to happen, I would have waited till you were serving to call this out. So we had a pretty good laugh, but it was quite embarrassing for the referee.
Well, what does that say about your program, Theo? You're not pumping the balls up during practice. You're just letting them get flat. And
a little bit of a Tom Brady effect. We figured if they're serving tough, if we deflate the balls, we could probably control it a little bit better and, keep us a little more in system. So that was our mindset. Referees just didn't pick up on it till set 2.
Science right there.
All right, let's start with our guests. Thoughts on Hawaii and Northridge. Larry Wraither of Fort Valley State University.
Theo kind of hit it on the head, right? Like, Hawaii's playing the cleanest style of volleyball next to, I mean, your top half of guys are playing really clean volleyball. And that's something we're trying to add into the SIAC right now is we have glimpses of things, but what they're doing on big boy level is really inspiring for guys. So sorry, Theo, but it's kind of one of those things you go, it was expected and it's kind of what you thought was going to happen. But Theo tried to get his way out of it and pull his Tom Brady moments, you know, to give them a little bit of an edge in that game, but it didn't really work out. But just being able to go on those runs and only have one error and then tie some more together, like that is what men's volleyball is, right? Or volleyball in general, because it is a game of errors, and those who can play the cleanest and minimize their own errors and put the ball in the other team's court, maybe it's not a difficult ball or a hard hit ball, but it puts you in a tough position to score out of, which then gives them the advantage. So they're playing some high IQ volleyball, which is very enjoyable to watch.
Wow, Larry throwing salt right in the beginning and then like buttering it up towards the end. I like that.
Yes,
He
I
is
love
good.
Yo, Larry.
We'll get you a hat that says throw salt. All right, here we go. Let's go to Brad, who will actually I can't even remember if you've seen Hawaii yet, but we'll go to Brad in the Big West.
Yeah, I mean, they played clean volleyball like they normally do, right? And like, look at Shakas, didn't have the best night offensively or the best 2 nights offensively, but made a huge impact with his serve and passing and serve receiving. It's like, that's what the better players in the country do. If things aren't perfect or they're game planning around them, which looks like Theo was, and it's probably pretty smart, he finds other ways to impact the game, you know, and then the other players around him, Jazz, Muklius, both those guys hit over 500 for the weekend. And then you got Voss, who is dominating really in every phase, from his blocking to his attacking, and even from the end line. So yeah, it just shows you a well-rounded team and how they're able to adjust to what a team is taking away and still have impacts to help their team win.
Yeah. Jump over to Dan of Lewis.
Not much to add. I think Jakob's a player of the year candidate, you know, and then you've got 4 or 5 All-Americans on that team playing at the level they should be towards the end of the year. So, you know, I think they went in and took care of business on a road match. And interesting, you know, you think about it, like 7 or 8 years ago, we used to talk about Hawaii couldn't play on the road. I think that's gone away over the past 4 or 5 years, where they've done a great job of playing on the road now after they travel off the island. So,
yeah, let's close out with Jay. Our topic: Hawaii Northridge.
I won't take long. Experience plus athleticism, usually that's a winning combination, and that's what Hawaii's got right now. So there's a reason why they're in the top 5, and wherever you put them in the polls, I think it's all warranted.
Yeah,
we'll see who's number 1 this week, right? Here in a few hours. So,
the Kingsford syndrome.
It won't be Penn State.
So no, it won't.
Wow. Now you're shaking salt at Pav, and he's not even on here. You know,
and we were saying that last week, at least maybe one of us.
Well, no, I thought was interesting is for Theo, a couple guys been playing really well for you, Griffin Walters and Kyle Hobus, and you know they were really minimized. And I mean, it just shows how good Hawaii is offensively and defensively, because Hobus has held to 12 kills.
Griffin hit 474 night 1, hit 300 night 2. He's playing pretty well right now.
Yeah. So still, again, got to finish out. We're only just under halfway in conference play in the Big West. So, you know, we'll be talking about some upcoming matches, but I get to see Theo in person this Friday. So that'll be a fun one. Let's go over to our next match. Unranked CUI. See, I got the branding right, even though Jay's going to argue it's Concordia University Irvine. Defeats number 5 Grand Canyon night 1, split the weekend series. Let's get your guys' response. Let's start with Dan first on this one.
Gage Doble, you know what I mean? So that guy's an athlete and a beast. And so I think ultimately he was a pretty bright spot. And I think Concordia's got a couple players that opposite is that Urel. Is that right? Yuri. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good too. I think so there's got a couple athletic pieces, and I'm not sure whether Grand Canyon underestimated them or just things got a little flat for them, but they kind of opened the door in a couple of those sets, and you know, Concordia did a nice job of capitalizing. So I think, but you did see Grand Canyon respond the second night and take care of business. You know what I mean, in terms of that. So yeah,
they went 37-35 in set 1 on night 2. So there was definitely a battle still going on there. Let's go to Theo.
Yeah, I think, I feel like we're in years past, we've been used to seeing situations like this, right? A little bit of a trap game. A team like CUI, who on paper, maybe you don't think that they're going to be great. They've got some athletes and they're capable of playing at a really high level. And I think Dan hit it on the head. Maybe Grand Canyon took it lightly. Maybe that first night they thought that maybe this was going to be an easier match than it was. And Concordia was ready. They came prepared. And, I think Batista is, he's been electric all year, and especially in big games, he's done a great job. And for them to have Gage step up the way that he did, I thought that was really, really impressive. So yeah, I got to tip my hat to Concordia. I thought they took advantage of a nice situation. And then we watched Grand Canyon turn around and do what they probably should have done both nights. But that's why we play it, right? You got to bring it in as a top 5 team as Grand Canyon is. You can't take nights off.
There you go. Piece of advice there for other coaches out there, right? Let's go over to Larry Wraither of Fort Valley State.
I mean, it's the thing you love about this month, right? I'm not a huge basketball fan, but the month of March brings out the dog in a lot of people, right? And you get to see it televised on ESPN of all these underdogs coming through and beating these top seeds. And it goes to show you any given day, any given night, it's anyone's game. It's who comes in with the most heart and wanting to fight through the game. And Irvine showed that, right? Concordia showed that in the first night. But at the same time, GCU responded. They didn't lay over and take it as, oh, we just let this go. They came back the next night and rolled it through and cleaned up some things that they needed to clean up from the first night. But it goes to show you, in the men's volleyball realm, anybody is anytime can have a win.
Yeah. Go to Jay.
Concordia of Irvine, and again, I paid my money. I got my degree, my master's from there.
I think they took your name off the rolls, though.
That's okay. I still have the shingle. I'm good. Concordia is arguably the little brother in that conference when you think about it. I mean, look at the schools that they're up against every single weekend. The money, the facilities, everything you could think of. Concordia is going to have a chip on the shoulder. They're kind of like Damon. Damon's got a chip on the shoulder, and they're good. Reminiscent, I think, of old, and Theo might agree with this, of old Northridge back in the days. When you were a kid that went to Northridge, your goals and aspirations were, back then, not now, but back then, hey, I want to go to UCLA, I want to go to USC, I want to go to wherever else. And those places maybe didn't pick you up. And all of a sudden you go to Northridge and now you got a chip on your shoulder. And they play with a lot of heart and a lot of moxie. Concordia is coached by Riley Salmon, not exactly a sit back in a chair kind of coach. He's fiery. He inspires his guys. They want to play hard. And they've got a humongous chip on the shoulder. They walk into those gyms and go, we don't care how big our facility is or how much money we have or what we can spend. We're going to go in there and we're going to fight tooth and nail. And Gage Doble, he's a kid that fits that mold perfectly. So kid had a big night in night one. He had 22 kills, hit 600. It's not a bad welcoming or coming out party, if you ask me. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I think it surprises everybody, though, for the obvious reason that Grand Canyon was doing so well in top 5 in the country. But it is an upset for sure.
Yeah, let me ask this. I mean, I knew about Gage before, but was he not playing? Does everybody know where the status is?
So he's been rehabbing. He's coming back from an injury. So he just kind of got cleared. That's why Scott Montez was playing a little earlier.
Right.
So him getting back has been important for them being a little bit better. And then you see it, right, with from night 1 to night 2. Night 1, he hit 600. Night 2 doesn't have the same success.
Right.
And that piece, as that group grows a little bit more now with what seems to be their lineup as they're getting healthier, seeing that, I mean, we could see that matchup in the first round of the MPSF conference tournament, and it's going to be really interesting to see that after, splitting with them at Grand Canyon, what that looks like at a neutral site or wherever they're playing the MPSF tournament is going to be really, really fun to watch. And as you could tell, even night 3, those scores 35-37, 25-23. It's going to be a battle for whoever that second place team in the MPSF is. If Concordia does end up in that 7th spot, that's going to be a tough first round to get through.
I'll follow up on that, Brad. When you look at all of the conferences and how their playoffs are going to shake out, it's arguably going to be the teams that can play longer stretches of good matches together that are obviously going to win. And listen, I know that's a dumb moment for some people, but there are some teams like Concordia, some teams like Princeton, some teams like Charleston that could be hot on one night and then the next night not be so hot, and that's gonna hurt some people. So you'll see some surprise, matches would go the other way than you think, but can they sustain that throughout the course of the playoffs and into the NCAAs? And we're noticing that the teams that do that the most are the teams that are in the top 5 right now.
I was going to go to Brad and finish, but his comment, unless you have anything else to add on top of that.
No, that was perfect. That was it.
I was waiting for he's from Orange Coast College at Gage Doble, and he only had one error, and I coached him through Balboa Bay Club. I was waiting for that stuff. But yeah, a great performance. And for our fans and viewers, Grand Canyon's playing good ball. And for him to only have one error and 22 kills against a team with a pretty phenomenal pair of liberos on their side, that's pretty stinking good. So hats off to Riley and the Golden Eagles of CUI, Jay. CUI.
And the Grand Canyon gym atmosphere is very difficult to play in on top of that. Like if you add that into it and them winning that first night, it gets pretty rowdy in that gym from their fans. So it's not like it was an easy win. They just played great volleyball. There was a lot of things against them in that first night that they were able to overcome.
Yeah, they throw those student body raves before the match, apparently, from what I've been hearing.
Fun stuff.
That's right. You might see Jay showing up at a few of them, going back to the days in his 80s outfits. Let's go to our next match. This is a big one. An EIVA team handed it to I don't want to say handed. It was a great battle to I'm sure the MIVA is like, whoa, what happened there? Number 9 Loyola, beaten by Princeton 5-1. Sam Schweisky's crew. Let's start with Brad on this one. He's been the tail end of our group discussion. So let's start.
Hey, you didn't talk about the other MIVA team handling it to number 1 Penn State either. Well, so you know,
wait. We still have one more topic left, Dan.
I just want to make sure I throw that out there, just so you know. So.
Gotcha. Murray.
DJ Murray. All right, Brad, fire away.
Yeah, I mean, Loyola was probably better in just about every aspect of the game, except for they didn't have Ben Harrington. And that was what led Princeton to win in that match. They passed a little bit better. Serving was kind of a wash. Offensively was pretty similar. It was just Ben Harrington from the service line, Ben Harrington attacking, Ben Harrington out of system. And he's a hell of a player. And that's someone to be scared of if you're in the EIVA, 100%.
Yep. Let's go to Jay.
Yeah, no, Ben Harrington had 18 kills and had 5 aces in the match against Loyola. The thing that I think is the most telling is I was talking to John Hawks after the match, and he goes, hey, take a guess how many aces Ben had. And I go, it felt like 10 or 11. He goes, yeah, he only had 5. But he serves with such pace that even the ones they did get up were really out of system, and it felt like an ace. And even Hawks went up to the kid afterwards and was like, geez Louise, kid, it's a great match by you. He is so athletic. He was hitting a few serves in the mid 70s, low 70s. He is so athletic, though. There was a ball, I remember, the setter, Wedbush, shot it across the court long-wise. It never got above maybe midway in the antenna. Like, it literally was a straight line midway through the antenna the entire way. Harrington recognizes it, steps into the court just a little bit, hits the ball sideways, still with pace enough to make the ball go down without anybody touching it. That's next level stuff. That kid could be in anybody's gym right now and be a starter. He is that good. So Ben Harrington, and he's my choice for player of the week. Don't anybody steal him.
Making calls games like that? What the heck, Jay?
Shotgun.
Dan started that last week. This is illegal. You cannot.
Okay, wait for the first segment next week. It's coming.
There's no rules. There's no written rules.
Hey, Young Bucks.
A week
Young
before
Bucks, he's
record,
the old guy on the show, okay? So he gets to do what he wants. Does that
That's
make
right.
sense?
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go to Larry of Fort Valley State on the Loyola and Princeton match.
Let me start off. I love the coaching staff at Loyola, but being a Ball State alum, I hate Loyola, so I'm glad they lost. Just my Miva pride coming in there, but Loyola's been playing a lot of really good.
at gmail.com.
Yeah. But Loyola's been playing some really good ball in conference and handling a lot of really good things. But Ben is a guy, even when I was in the EIVA coaching at Charleston, we were trying to get him. It wasn't really a guy we probably were going to get, but he was a guy that everyone wanted because they knew what he was capable of and what he was going to be able to produce. And he's been doing that his whole career. And now he's really starting to get that IQ at a higher level where he's starting to figure some things out faster than everyone else and tying them together. He plays a good style of the way I like to think of it of grass volleyball, right? You play grass, it's all about everyone can score offensively, but the way you really score points is defensively and from the service line. And he's putting some pace from that inline that's really becoming more of an advantage than a disadvantage for their program, that they can really start to tie some more points around if he continues that pace.
Good call. Jump over to Dan.
Well, I think ultimately Colton Brooks still isn't in the lineup in terms of that. So I think that's not to take anything away from Princeton, but we played Loyola on Thursday, and Loyola's got their strengths for sure, and they're playing good. But I mean, Loyola gets a short turnaround, goes out and plays Princeton in Princeton's gym. Princeton gets hot. We already talked about Ben, how good he is. And then they go to Mason, and Mason almost had him. You go to 5 and 2 points to it. I mean, I think out of the 9 games they played, 5 or 6 of them were 2-point games with Loyola between those 2 matches. So I think Loyola's extremely talented. I think they're even a little bit better when Brooks is back in the lineup in terms of what they can do with the 3 pins. I mean, Jack Yentz passes ball well, but he's certainly not as offensive as Colton in terms of that. So they get him back on the floor over the next couple of weeks here. I think certainly that puts them even in a better spot in terms of that. But compliment to Sam and his guys finding a way to get a win, which I think is a key confidence build as they continue in the conference play. So yeah,
they played Loyola in our gym.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's why I was pointing. I was like, no, they played it.
That wasn't an Eagle, right? Yours was an Eagle, right? Or were they both?
Yeah, ours was an Eagle Bank, and theirs was in the rack.
Right.
And yeah, it was close. We should have made a couple less errors. It might have been a different story, but it was a good match.
Let's come back to your matches. It's a Sunday afternoon to close out the weekend, and Jay's Patriots take Loyola to 5. So, hey, but Jay already commented, a few errors here and there, and he's still salty. But who didn't know that already? Let's finish out the topic with Theo Edwards.
Yeah, I think I thought the more interesting piece of the stat line was Loyola did a fantastic job against Nero. Nero hit 111. And typically, if you can hold Nero to that type of stat line, you're going to have a shot at beating Princeton for sure. And I'm looking back at the scouting report from when we played Princeton, and there's a line on there that says "just survive Ben" at the end line, and it's the truth. I mean, that kid just has the ability to do some really, really explosive things from the end line, and I think Jay was the one who hit it on the head that his serve was just dynamite. And the fact that they were able to rally a series of points off of his serve. And obviously he hit incredibly, he hit 324 on 37 swings. Yeah, he had a great night. And so this Princeton team, I think is, as usual, per Sam's usual, they have their ups and downs, but I think when it comes down to it, they're a pretty scary team. And I think they're 4-2 in the EIVA. And I don't know that anybody wants to play them when Ben Harrington's hot.
I'll tell you one thing from a fan base perspective. If you're watching a guy who's hitting over a 70-mile-an-hour jump serve, you got to hear the pop. You can't get that on the live stream. But when you're right there, I saw Matt Anderson in a USA match, was standing behind him, get that toss, and the pop off the ball is so loud. You can just tell this thing is coming at you so fast.
Well, you were talking about Nero. I think the thing that people are maybe not aware of, so Nicodemus Meyer, who plays on Loyola, top 5 in the country in blocks right now. He's 1.4 or 1.3 something, and he hits at 470 clip, and he's this big 6'10" wide kid that takes up a ton of space. So I think probably an under the radar middle a little bit in terms of what he's producing for that Loyola team.
Yep. All right, next topic. And, I actually forgot to mention, we're going to keep Dan's topic that he kind of snuck out there already for the very last one, because it was involving the former #1 team. But man, there was a battle in Provo, Utah that I forgot to put in our notes that went 5 sets both nights, resulting in one of the athletes getting 37 stinking kills in a match. So that's the Pepperdine at BYU. I have a feeling I didn't send you guys those stat lines, but Mix Romanes has been the flying below the radar outside hitter in the nation this year, because he gets it done. Not big numbers, but he's so consistent enough to give his other players enough freedom to score for BYU, but his numbers aren't so bad. He's actually up there. He led the way on Saturday night, 18 kills, 361 ace, 8 digs, 3. But it's the other stuff, the intangibles that he's doing that's giving BYU the edge. And because for the first time, I think Sean said that he doesn't have like this big name on his roster this year. It's a bunch of guys contributing to his team's efforts. But I wanted to get your guys' comment on the BYU Pepperdine matches, because that's a 7-8 matchup. And I suspect there will be a flip this year in the AVCA, or this week in the AVCA poll. So let's start with you, Dan.
Well, I think ultimately you were talking about it, Mix. Oh, by the way, it's my player of the week, and I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. So anyway, I think you said it. Certainly Pepperdine, the unfortunate Pepperdine's super talented. They tend to be a little bit of a one-man show at times. And again, player of the year candidate, Jalen Jasper, like phenomenal numbers this year and is playing really next level volleyball for him. But I don't know, BYU's got a contingent of guys that kind of step around. Mix is kind of the staple, but Heath is the other guy, their setter. He's a transfer from Grand Canyon who's come in and really does a nice job and steadies him out. I think he had double-digit digs one night. And so I think he's done some nice things for them and really helped carry some of that load from distributing the offense.
Yep. Go to Theo.
Yeah, this might have been the matchup of the week, just in the sense that, you obviously got 7 versus 8. And, I think it's always a little bit difficult to figure out, especially from a rankings perspective, like which one of those teams is truly better. And to have a matchup in March like this is perfect. It's the telltale story. And, I think I was shocked to see, and we played the same night, so I didn't get to watch either one of these live, but I was shocked to see that Jasper on night 2 only hit 0.49, which very few teams have been able to hold him to that type of a hitting percentage. But I was even more surprised that it went 5. Yeah. Like it going 5 without Jalen playing the way that Jalen has been playing all year, I think is an absolute testament to Pepperdine's team standing up and trying to find another way if Jalen's not being successful. And I think that, that obviously is a testament to why they're in the top 10, and they're definitely a top 10 caliber team. But BYU definitely got the edge in this one, and it'd be nice to see them play again in the MPSF playoffs. I think these are obviously 2 teams that are going to be a force down the stretch, and excited to see what they look like towards the end of the season.
I had to look at the box scores, and I'm assuming that it was Trent Moser who was on Jalen Jasper, who had 8 block assists on his own. So Trent Moser has been a huge contributor to the Cougars. Let's jump to Larry. Thoughts on the BYU Pepperdine?
BYU is going to show why volleyball is the most team-oriented sport, right? They don't have necessarily one guy who's carrying the full load. Pepperdine does with Jalen, but they still have some stars within there that help carry it for him, but he's obviously carrying the load. But on the flip side, the second night, they still went 5 while Jalen was hitting terrible, right? Like he's hitting 0.049. So his teammates found a way to still get them involved to stay in that match. So this is just both matches, both nights just shows what men's volleyball is when it comes to full team aspect and not just having one golden star, right? A good team will have one golden star, but the top performing teams and programs are going to have numerous of guys who can be at least consistent and not be a black hole on the court.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Let's go to Brad.
Yeah, night 1 was, Pepperdine and Jalen Jasper kept him in the game. And the interesting stat there was in the 5-set match, Pepperdine had 0 aces in the entire match, which is rare to see, especially for a team with some of the servers that they have. with Akeen, with Jalen, with Bryce Dvorak. They have 3 pretty gnarly servers. So to hold them to 0 aces is pretty big. And then you look at the MPSF, you got Grand Canyon, BYU, Pepperdine. I think all 3 of those teams had 5-set matches. I think night 1 of Grand Canyon, BYU was 5-set, and then night 2, Grand Canyon won in 3 or 4 sets. But we're looking at this MPSF tournament looking really exciting and really enticing with some of those 3-4 matchups. And I'd say Meeks he's up there as one of the best players for BYU for sure. And I think he's putting himself in a spot to be, considered the guy on that team, which is impressive. But it's really, since he's earned that spot last season, he hasn't come off the court, and everyone else has been revolving around him. So he's been their steady piece for sure.
Yeah. Close out with
Brad. I agree. I think for the record, he is the guy, and he is a star, no doubt. No doubt.
And he might have been my player of the week too before someone called him.
You guys can have the same one. You don't have to pick a new guy. Again, it's just agreement. All right, Jay.
I'll be brief. BYU had a little bit of a downturn there for a little while their setter Hughes was not in the lineup. I think he is a major reason why BYU is humming on all cylinders right now. He distributes the rock really well and keeps that team flowing. So yeah, as long as he's healthy, they're going to be pretty good.
I think Theo mentioned about Pepperdine, about being a one pony show and then other supporting members. But night 2, if you look at the stats, they had 4 athletes in double-digit kills for Pepperdine, and BYU still got the win. And yes, they held Jalen Jasper. They contained him, but the other guys at Pepperdine obviously made a change their game plan where they were more involved in the offense, and BYU is still able to stop them. So, I think you're spot on with Heath Hughes back in the lineup. It's not that Noah Hayne didn't do his thing. He held the fort, and now they're humming on all cylinders, as Jay likes to say, humming on all cylinders of his microbus by Volkswagen coming in 2024. So let's jump over to our we gotta get one of those teaser. That's a cool shirt. Final topic of our matches, and this is Dan's favorite apparently because he jumped the gun 2 topics early. Number 15 Ohio State defeating number 1 Penn State. That is a big match because we were wondering, okay, how's Ohio State going to respond right now? They're kind of mid-level in EIVA conference. They've kind of getting some not bad losses, but losses were unexpected. But thoughts on it? We'll start with the home conference guy, Dan of Lewis.
Well, when you miss 400 serves, you hope your opponent win. I think Penn State missed, what is it? Well, I don't know. Was it 29 or 39? Does anybody have it in front of them? So,
I'll pull it up.
29 serving errors. And kudos to Ohio State. They've inserted Shane Wetzel and Michael Wright. Michael Wright's setting them. Shane Wetzel's been playing. He's a true freshman that's been playing over the course of the past couple weeks. And I think he's done a real nice job for them in balancing some things out. And I think they capitalized. Certainly it went 5, but to miss that many serves, I don't think Penn State's going to always miss that many. We've seen Penn State serve really, really well, and that's really what's put them in the advantage. I think you call it complacent. Like, I don't think Pav's going in saying not to play hard or not to underlook it or underestimate anybody. I think as a coach, we all go in and make sure our guys are aware of no matter what the team is. But I think the guys could have gone in a little bit and just not been as clean as they wanted to be in a pretty competitive match. And Ohio State capitalized at the right time. So
let's go to our EIVA rep now, Jay Hossick.
I'll be honest with you. Ohio State had 3 guys that hit in double-digit kills, and Penn State had 1. And Brett Wildman has not gone away, but he's definitely not the Brett Wildman that everybody saw in the beginning part of the year. And I shudder to think that there's anything going on injury-wise. I hope there's not. But when your leading guy is Cal Fisher, which is obviously everybody knows that name, he's good. Your next highest is a middle attacker, Toby, getting 10 kills. And then after that, it's 9. And like I said, Ohio State had 3 guys in double digits. Michael Wright did a nice job distributing the rock. And then, the other unranked factors, the serves, nearly 30 serves. That's 6 a game, basically on the average. When you start anything 06, technically that's going to be not in your favor most of the time. So the fact that they made it go 5 shows you some things, but Yeah, Ohio State just took it to them.
Yeah, 29 service errors. And the stat line that sticks out is a hot player for Penn State was Michal Koval, outside hitter. He was limited to 0 hitting that night. So, that very rarely has been happening this season. So let's jump over to Larry Wraither of Fort Valley.
I mean, as you look at the stat sheet right now, Penn State led in kills by 7, hit better in the match, got barely outdug. It really came down to those serves as you look at it, right? It's 14 free points that you gave them as you wash it out from 15 missed serves from Ohio State, 29 from Penn State, 14 free points. I mean, anybody takes that with a decent level squad and can run away with it. And then you add in that you have numerous guys hitting double digits. They're taking some points away from you while you're giving them some free points. So they did a good job of capitalizing on that in the match as they went. So it's a good Big Ten rivalry that we get to see every year as when they see each other. So, when they walk in, there's some bad blood with one another.
Jump over to Brad of UC San Diego. I need to say that more often. UC San Diego. There you go. Bonus.
Well, I'm not gonna claim this person as my player of the week because I'm gonna wait till the segment pulls up. But the player of the week might be coming from one of these two teams in honor of their 3-0 week. But the big piece, like Larry touched on it there, is the stats. Ohio State was worse in just about every category. They passed worse, they served worse, or they attacked worse. But serving was that big piece, and there's a match like this once every year, a couple times each year, where it's a statistical anomaly in terms of you look at everything and it's like, yep, Penn State probably should have won this match, but those errors from the service line, and that's part of the debate when we talk about the serving debate and what it looks like, because there's times when Penn State's beating Hawaii and it looks great, and there's times where it's like, why the heck could we not pop a float serve in to win this match in the 5th set? And that's kind of like that fine line. But yeah, and I think someone flying under the radar right now is Jacob Pastor. He's been playing some really good volleyball. He's really been one of the better outside hitters within the MIVA with everything he's doing. He's been playing really well. And I agree with Jay that Wildman has not been the Wildman as of the past few years. He's been off a little bit this year. And hopefully for Penn State's sake and for his sake, he's a very, very talented player. So I'd love to see him kind of get back on track here for this stretch run.
I know we can go into a full discussion on this topic, but I'm going to ask Brad only. But isn't the ace to error rate within the tolerance level that most coaches will accept? That because there's 12, how many aces they had? They had 12 aces to 29 errors.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what you're looking at for the stats and the scores. And, most of the time when we see a match like this, we're going to look at, like, you see Penn State wins 25-18 in the second set, pretty wide margin. They win 25-22 in the third set. And then the 5th set, it's 15-13, to where it's like, it just depends on that wiggle room that you're going to get to have. And, it's not so much that, like, those guys in the match, you're going to be telling them, hey, hit a float serve, or hey, roll shot this serve in. It's, is there a serving sub you have on the bench that potentially could be a float, your backup libero, whether it's your 4th outside, someone that has a float serve in their repertoire, where if we know we got them in a certain rotation, that we can sub in someone who's got a more consistent, less aggressive serve. That might be an opportunity to maximize our team playing well in some other areas of the game.
This could be known as 2023, the year of the Jakobs, because you have Jakob Tella, Jakob Steele, and now Jakob Pastor.
Whoa. We've made them all Norwegian somehow. Jakob.
I was gonna throw in as Brad. I think that Rob, you talk about the ace to error ratio. The thing that becomes bigger is how are you point scoring in a row, and what's the error percentage when you're point scoring in that row? That becomes a bigger thing. Like if I got a guy that's green lighting and he's point scoring, I don't know, 47%. Let's just throw a wild number out there, and his error rate's up around 20%. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? But if we're point scoring in a row and it's like upper 30s and the guy's still airing like 25, then we're having a little conversation about what's going on. And so not a lot of people see that number where coaches do. The coaches, like when you're on a stat box for you, you just see the ace air ratio and you're like, well, what is a coach like? I'm like, that one doesn't matter as much to me as what we're doing per rotation on point scoring and how that air percentage pulls into that. So,
And here's an interesting piece. I just pulled it up on Volleymetrics. Ohio State, good pass percentage. So when Ohio State passes the ball, good pass, meaning they're in system. They were in system 27% of the time. Penn State was in system 50% of the time when they passed the ball.
Wow. You know, I look like Theo, you're about to say something. I don't want to cut you off there.
Well, and the interesting piece too, forgive me if I'm wrong, but didn't this game end with back-to-back aces?
Yes.
Float serves.
Ohio State had back-to-back aces to win it.
Float serves.
Float serves. And I mean, if you look at this match across the board, Penn State served good enough to win. They absolutely did. They couldn't receive the ball in float serve reception back to back to end it. And so, you know, you look at some of these numbers. I mean, they're pretty impressive for sure. But to see both Brett Wildman and Michael Valenzi take 46 swings, one hits 043, the other hits 174. I mean, that's the difference in the match right there. I watched this match and I felt like you couldn't set Cal Fisher enough. He hit 500. They set him 34 times. I was thinking, let's set him like 58 times. The guy was absolutely killing almost every single ball that he touched. So yeah, this was a real disappointment, I think, for Penn State, because I think this was a low-hanging fruit. They could have won this match for sure. They needed just a few point scores at the end and maybe pass a couple of float serves, and it's a different story for sure.
Yep. Well, you know, you're mentioning, well, you should have said Fisher 50 times. Well, in the other match, BYU Pepperdine, Jalen Jasper, 62 attempts. So, and they still didn't get it done.
They still couldn't do it.
All right. Hey, I know we are going long, but, you know, we want to focus on what's happening in each of the conferences. I was going to go through a quick rundown of the other conferences and the coaches representing. Theo, you comfortable doing MPSF? So I'm going to have you do that and have Brad do the Big West if possible.
Sure.
Because I hate talking. I want you guys always be the focus. So in conference standings so far, NEC, you got Damon Long Island tied 7 at the top at 7 and 1. St. Francis knocking on the door there.
Damon took a loss to St. Francis, right? In 5, right?
Yep. At Damon.
Oh.
Yep. In the IVA, Lincoln Memorial atop 5-0, and Missouri S&T 2-0. So they're still working that out. The Conference Carolinas, that's a really tight race there. You have North Greenville, Erskine. They're tied for first, 7-3, 8-4 for the latter. And you have a bunch of teams with 4 and 5 losses in the middle of the pack there, which leaves us, we're going to end with Larry to talk about the SIAC. Oh, did I forget no, I did do the NEC. So let's start with Jay with the EIVA update.
Yeah, Penn State's still obviously holding court, and you're looking at number 2 through 4 that are all fighting for that seed to be in the first round bye. You know, the real goal will be obviously to be a 1 or a 2 seed, but if you're one of the bottom 4 teams, you want to be either number 3 or number 6, because that means you're going to be in the first round, obviously in a quarterfinal match, but that means in the second round you don't face Penn State in the semis, and that's the team you don't want to be. So yeah, right now Charleston's in second place and they're doing some good things, but Princeton's right there knocking on the door. And if NGIT gets hot again, they're going to be knocking on the door. It's a hotly contested conference right now. Every team is good.
Yep. Scary conference right now. You don't know who's going to rise up. Let's go to the MIVA, Dan Friend of Lewis.
Well, certainly Loyola still got some separation at 9-1 at the top. But I thought what was key was Lindenwood traveled to Ball State and Ohio State. We were wondering where they might be. They lost both those matches on the road. So, you know, Ball State and Ohio State pull a little separation, tied for second right now, with Lindenwood coming in at 4th. And then there's us and Purdue are tied at 5 and 5. And then McKendree and Quincy are down at 7 and 8. So Ball State, Ohio State come to me this weekend along with McKendree. So those are kind of key road games for those guys. And then Lindenwood's got to play Loyola and Purdue. So Lindenwood can kind of make some ground or figure some things out, kind of to find that separation, or they could drop. So it'd be interesting to see how this next weekend rolls into the last. So
cool. Let's go over to Theo Edwards, who had experience in the MPSF back in his playing days. So we're gonna have him do that update.
Yeah, so the MPSF is, as we kind of expected, is incredibly competitive. UCLA at number 1, and they're obviously 6-0. I thought a really interesting thing about that is if you look at the individual stat leaders in the MPSF, UCLA is not leading in any category other than blocking. Thought that was a really, really interesting stat. And obviously, it's a testament to the fact that that team is incredibly balanced in a lot of ways. Now, they are number 2, number 3, and number 4 in service aces. They don't have the number 1 spot, but they're 2, 3, and 4, which I thought was pretty incredible. If that doesn't tell you why they're winning. Grand Canyon at number 2, and you know they probably would love to be 7-1 at this point, but they're 6-2 with Concordia throwing in a little bit of a wrench. And the other interesting piece is with Pepperdine and BYU coming into this week. Pepperdine was 4-2. BYU was 2-4, and now they're both 4-4 with BYU having the tie split, which I think is probably going to really bite Pepperdine down the stretch when we start to look at the tournament standings and where that's all going to play out. Stanford, USC, and Concordia are at the bottom. Stanford 2-4, USC 1-5, which I don't know that most people expected at this point in the game, and Concordia right there at 1-5 as well. So it's anyone's ball game, I think, in terms of the middle of the pack, and UCLA is leading the charge, and I think that's what we all kind of thought would happen.
Yep. Let's go to a Big West update with the Big West rookie, Brad Rostratter, and you can say UC Irvine undefeated 4-0 at the top. I'll do that.
Yeah, so Irvine's up at the top 4-0. And then we have Hawaii and Long Beach, who have their split out in Hawaii, the 1-1 matchup out there. So both those teams are at 3-1. And what we're seeing is kind of those top 3 teams in the Big West. And then we have the next grouping of Big West teams with CSUN and the Fighting Theo Edwards at 1-3. And San Diego and Santa Barbara were both 1-4. And really over the next 2 weeks, we're going to get a lot more clarity in terms of how everything's shaping out, just as more of these head-to-head matchups are coming our way.
Yeah, big shuffle, I predict as well in the Big West these upcoming 3 weeks. And then let's close out with our new conference representative of the SIAC, Larry Wraither of Fort Valley State.
Yeah, so right now, the way it's sitting, the way I like to look at it is with 6 teams, we have 3 tiers within our conference. You have your top tier, which is Edward Waters, Central State, who are your conference co-season champions in the regular season, and then Central State won it out in the playoffs. But Edward Waters is unbeaten right now this season. Both teams are extremely scrappy. They have some guys who are smart with the ball and can do some really good things from the inline and attacking. And then you have Benedict and us in that middle tier of, we both have those stars as we talked about, right? And we're trying to figure out those balancing pieces with it to help add into that team to get them into that top half. And then you have your bottom half, which they're just still trying to figure things out. Morehouse and Kentucky State both went through coaching changes in the middle of the year last year. So these coaches are still trying to figure out the guys that are there that necessarily they didn't recruit, but are in their gym that they're trying to make better still. And I can say Morehouse's record doesn't look it, but they're a ton better than they were last year. They're actually looking like they're playing some decent volleyball now, and they're starting to figure some things out with a bunch of walk-ons. So things are coming along. Just some stat lines that I pulled up to mention for you guys to talk about the conferences. If you look individually, we have guys from in our conference, whether it's 3 to 4 guys in the top 30% of statistics. So in the aces, we have 3 guys in the top 30. Assists, we have 2 in the top 30. Attackers and attacks, we have 4 in the top 30. Digs, we have 4 in the top 20% of all athletes. Hitting percentage, we have 3 in the top 30%. Kills, we have 4 in the top 25%. So like we have guys that can produce things at a very high level. It's just getting the rest of it to come along with it. And you guys kind of joke on Jalen about having his 64 attempts. Well, in a straight dog fight against Benedict for us on Friday night, Jesse Delancey had 83 attempts with 36 kills, hitting 246, I want to say. And then we had Isaiah Fed, who had 50 attempts with 30 kills, hitting 4 something. So like those guys were just in a slugfest. And our 5th set, I believe, went 21-19 because it was those two just swinging it out against each other of who's going to make that error first to give the other team the advantage. I hate to say it, we were the ones who gave them the advantage, but it just goes to show you like the level of play and the guys we have in this conference are up there with other conferences. It just may not be as clean as everyone else for a longer period of time. We all have those moments where it's really great volleyball and it looks beautiful. And then we have moments when we go, what the hell was that? What just happened? Right. And that's a part of only being in your second year of a conference. You're going to have those troubles and you're going to have those hardships. But to show that you have guys that are number 1 in digs, number 1 in kills per set, 14, 15, 16 in aces. You have 1 and 2 in digs between Central and Benedict. Kills, you have 1, 20, 23, and 25. Right. And all these guys are freshmen and sophomores. Like they're young guys still trying to figure out what it's like to compete at this high of a level and against higher caliber teams and being consistent with that day in and day out. And I think that's where you find a lot of young players still struggling is how can I tie this together and do a copy paste scenario, right? How do I take this good night and copy it and paste it every single day, day in and day out? And once they figure that out, is going to be some really good things coming out of the SIAC.
Excellent stuff. Great update too, Larry. Appreciate it. So guys, follow all the conferences, all these teams here that are being represented. You guys have 10 minutes. I know we're running long. So because we got to do our favorite segments. And I did want to get some fan questions on there too. There's only 2. One is for all of you and one is directed at Jay. That's a shocker.
Yes. What is it? I'm ready.
But let's go here first. What are you guys watching in week? Is that 13 of the NCAA men's volleyball season? Let's start with Larry.
I haven't even gotten that far. I got too much going on here. I haven't had time to look anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Let's go to your twin brother.
Going on.
Twin brother Theo will bail you out.
I got it. I'll take it. I think UCLA and Grand Canyon. That's going to be an ultimate matchup. I think Grand Canyon obviously coming off of a difficult week. It'll be interesting to see how they refocus and get it going against the Bruins, who are obviously playing some fantastic ball.
Wow. Big call right off the bat. Let's go to Dan of Lewis.
Well, I'm gonna throw Theo some love. He's got to play Irvine, who's currently ahead in conference right now. So we'll see if he can get his guys to bounce back playing Rob's guys. So that'll be pretty key, I think, in terms of conference play. Besides that, Lindenwood in our conference, I think, how do they respond? They got to play Loyola and Purdue Fort Wayne, both teams that are playing pretty well. Can Lindenwood take that step? They got a pretty talented group, and to see where they go with that.
Let's go to
Dan,
Brad.
can I get your prediction of Cal State Northridge and UC Irvine, please?
Split. You're going to get one. You guys are going to split.
Oh, man. Salt throwing either way.
Don't send me hate mail, Diffin. I'm sorry, buddy.
The sprinkler of salt is a circular one. It's the Rainbird version. Let's go to Brad of UC San Diego.
I'm sticking with my theme. I had Erskine King last week. Erskine won in 5 sets in a battle to put him in position to be first in Conference Carolina. And then we got Erskine again versus North Greenville out in the Conference Carolina for the battle for first place. And then out in the EIVA, NJIT versus Charleston. Yep. I see Charleston taking it and running away with it.
Big call. Let's go over to Jay.
Hey, listen, the matches that I'm watching, absolutely NJIT Charleston. I would not be surprised if Charleston takes both of them. NJIT is finally at full strength again, which will be interesting to see if they can get back into rhythm. The other one, obviously, is UCLA Grand Canyon. My question is it at Grand Canyon or at UCLA?
At Grand Canyon.
See, here's my thought. if Worley could pack that place with, a few thousand people to be able to make it real wild and crazy and throw a little rave in there in the beginning, whatever, Grand Canyon could take a match, if not two of them.
Ooh, look at that.
As I got the second to look, there were two matches, and one being SIAC of Central State and Edward Waters, who are our top two in our conference. Edward Waters being unbeaten and Central State playing some good volleyball. They lost at Edward Waters, and now it's going to be at Central. So Central is a very tough gym to play in. And the second match was the UCLA Grand Canyon, just because I want to see how Grand Canyon competes at that level and how long they can sustain it. And then seeing UCLA compete in that gym of havocs.
Yep. I'm going to pick one this week because I thought for sure one of you guys would have picked it, but in the MIVA, Ohio State at Lewis, that log jam, I feel like the MIVA is like super competitive right now to a point where it's the biggest question mark of all, because I feel like all those teams can really battle with each other from what I've seen, at least this season. So I know Dan against Kevin, Ohio State at Lewis. So with that, let's go. I'm going to do the fan questions last, but I wanted to get your guys' player picks of the week. Let's start with Larry Wraither. Since everyone else has named it except for Larry, I'm pretty sure. We'll start with him.
I mean, looking at stat wise, going back to what we talked about earlier is Gage. I think he played some really good volleyball. And I'm obviously taking somebody else's because they brought it up earlier, but sorry, I got to go first. You didn't say it, I did. So that's who I'm going with.
Gage double CUI. Good call. Let's go to Brad. Hopefully he doesn't steal someone else's already.
No, I thought about stealing Jay or Dan's, but I'm going to go with Jacob Pastor. On the 3 matches, he had 44 kills, hit 400 over the 3 matches, killed 60% of the balls. And I know Dan's going to be trying to figure out how to stop him and slow him down a little bit in the matchup this weekend.
And then Jay, who's named the Jakob trio this week. I'm sure it's a Jakob, but one's down already. So what other Jakob are you going to choose?
Jakob Harrington. No, I'm just kidding. Ben Harrington is my choice this week. The kid hits the absolute snot out of the ball and was instrumental in beating Loyola, who is currently, I think, ranked 8th or 9th at that time. And for Princeton, who was unranked at that time, it was a good match for him. So that's my choice.
And then Dan, even though he already said it.
Yeah, I got Mix Ramos, had 2 great matches for BYU to get 2 wins in 5 for them, and 19 points one night, 20 points the other night. Yeah, he's mine.
And then close out with Theo.
It pains me to say it, but I think my player of the week is Chaz Galloway. First night he hits 500, second night he hits 4 and change, and he just had a fantastic week, especially after coming off of a little bit of a lull for him offensively. He took advantage of the fact that he was not number 1 on the scouting report and did a pretty nice job for them.
There was a picture that came out on social of Chaz Galloway coming in on the pick. I don't know if you guys saw it, but dude seriously has wings on his ankles. I think his feet were above the bottom tape of the net, and he is on, not even at the peak of his attack. And he was like levitating above the skies of LA or in the valley. So yeah, he was on fire.
Jay, on Ben, I don't know how many of you have actually shook hands with Ben, but he's like the Kawhi Leonard of volleyball. This kid's hands are massive, and he just gets a hold of balls, which helps him so much.
It's like shaking a bunch of bananas. It's a pretty big hand there.
I don't even know where to go.
Honestly, I've heard a lot of analogies, and I have never heard that one.
That's actually from a Jack Black film, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Pop culture invades CBW.
Yeah, he said, "What's up, banana hands?"
Well, let's go to our fan questions. This is for everyone on here, so whoever wants to take a stab at it, feel free. But this is from our fan questions segment on March 13th, and we were only able to hit 3 of them since these guys on the screen did an awesome job of addressing each of them, and there's some big topics. So these ones a little lighter, but here's the question. What are the coaches' thoughts on the top players in high school? Are there any guys they see making a big splash in the college game or potentially even further down the line? Who wants
we can't answer that.
Can't do that.
NCAA violation. So we
Oh,
can
really?
say
Oh.
we can say this. There's some good players in high school, and some of us on the screen are getting some of those good players, and we'll leave it at that.
Oh, wow. I forgot about it. NCAA regs. My bad.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah.
We want to give you love. So, here's the big one. It was directed at Jay, and since you guys couldn't answer that last question, it did say, Jay, how is the greater Fairfax, DC area going to promote the NCAA tournament this year?
Well, I think we touched upon that a couple of weeks ago. We're planning and preparing, and we had a test run yesterday in the Eagle Bank to make sure all the stuff was working and all that was good. And we're excited just to bring everybody into town and show them a good time. And hopefully the stadium will be packed with fans from across the country. I think we're doing a good job of marketing it out right now. But yeah, we're ramping up, and it's getting close to crunch time, and we're just excited to host the country's best in our backyard for a week.
Jay,
Yeah,
how many seats are in that arena?
10,000.
10,000.
Yep. It's about the same size as Stan Sheriff. And it's a great place to play volleyball. It's really, really fun to play in there.
Yeah, I think the other thing we talked about a couple weeks ago is they have a USA accelerator going on. So it's a boys opportunity for some training that's going on for 2 or 3 days. So we're bringing a lot of East Coast boys in for that, which will help promote both the semifinals and the finals for sure. The All-American banquet is in conjunction with that going on at the same time for all the guys that are playing in it, as well as the AVCA board meeting will be there as well. So just some outside things that are going on. So
Yep.
All right. Good stuff. Sorry I wasn't able to get that first question answered, but instead we had the bonus surprise of Larry Wraither of Fort Valley State joining us this week. So again, Larry Wraither, Fort Valley State, Theo Edwards of Cal State Northridge, Dan Fran of Lewis, Jay Hosick of George Mason, Brad Rothstrider of UC San Diego. Be sure to follow all these guys' programs on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook for all you old folk. MySpace, not quite there yet, but they do still have their websites. Be sure to visit them, go to their streams, visit volleyballmag.com's live streamings, update along with off the blogs and other places where you can get all your volleyball information. There's a few out there. Sorry if I left you out, but guys, thank you for this morning's extended episode. Larry, thanks for joining us. And I'm looking forward to seeing Theo this Friday and then the rest of you on Monday. So best of luck to you all this week, except for Theo. Good
luck, Theo.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.